off as much as you want. All right, here we go. This is Coach Arnie with the Health, Love, Life, and Adventure Show, and we are on WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, radio, TV, and podcast, the number one internet talk radio. And that's me right there, Coach Arnie. And we are, there's some contact information as well. And there's my phone number. Of course, I love phone calls and text messages. You're not bothering me. I'd love to talk to you, have a conversation. And tonight we got a really special guest, somebody who's in another group of mine. And I got to meet him. But the thing that really got me excited about this guy here is he gave me a heads up. Number one, no, first of all, he's been following, him and his dad have been following my LinkedIn post. And I'm thinking, well, this is good. Gosh darn it. And then he gave me a heads up on a podcast gentleman who does health and wellness and utilizing the techniques that him and I are learning on another group. I just picked up the phone and called this guy. And he said, sure, let's get you on the show. And we already scheduled it and did it, Isaac. It'll be out. He said it should be out sometime later this week. I mean, maybe I didn't get a note from him today, so maybe it'll be out tomorrow.
Send me a link. Send me a link. I want to hear it.
Yeah. And so that was pretty cool. And then I thought, well, I need to get him on my show because, you know, number one, I mean, I have this show here every week, which is produced professionally by Cece, and she does a wonderful job. I also do a little tiny, and this is where I felt like a hiding when you were doing your thing with Joe, because I do a little tiny show on Anchor.
Mm-hmm.
I do like 10 minutes. And the only, because I had a show a couple years ago, Answers for Real Men, I called it, Isaac. And like I was just telling you and Cece a few minutes ago, I would do the recording. I have guests. I had almost guests every week. I try to do 2 shows a week, one long show, one shorter show. Excellent. And I would have guests, and we'd do all the, the recording stuff, and then I'd edit it. And it was quite the task. And I had all the software here. I probably still do somewhere. And then I don't know. I just got burnt out, and I got burnt out. And a lot of it was because I don't think I was getting, well, the response that I needed to get, which is some of the questions we're going to ask you today. Mm-hmm. And then I was listening to somebody, and you brought him up on when you were talking, when I first ran into you with Joe, you brought up Gary Vee, because you were talking about sound quality and all the things that you're going to talk to us tonight about. And you know exactly what Gary Vee told everybody. He said, quit worrying about all that stuff. If you want, do a podcast. Just he goes like this, pick your phone up, and he goes, download something called Anchor and just do a podcast. And he goes, quit worrying about it. And he's been really right on a lot of different things, especially for my videos that I've been doing now that are starting to get some traction, and some other things that I do on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, because my youngest daughter, who's a little older than you, she's one of these ones that's always telling me, Dad, you got to make it, and I go, oh my God, I'll never do them. I'll never get it done. I have to have somebody there to hold the thing. I got to have my tripod in the right position. There can't be any noise in the background. I go, when am I supposed to do this? In a sound studio? Who's going to pay for that? And so, because she was listening to people that were doing professionally studioed videos, yeah, if you could do that. But to me, what helped me, Isaac, was that I just listened to Gary Vee, and I just said, just do them and quit worrying about it. And so that, to me, that helped, because then I created some momentum. So now when I listen to a guy like you, when you first came on Joe's show, I thought, that makes sense. Because when I was first podcasting, some guys wouldn't even get me on their show unless they either sent me a mic or I showed that I had, and I still got my mic here in my bag over here with my headset and everything, but I stopped using all that stuff because I said, you know what, stop complicating it. You've got it if you need it. So let's just start off with, that was just my brain going crazy there. Let's just start off with, why don't you tell us how you got, you don't have to tell us how old you are. You already told me and Cece, but tell us what your background is here with podcasting, because it's such a such an interesting animal in today's world. And tell us how you got into it. What why are you passionate about it, and what's your background? And just tell us a little bit about Isaac Smith.
So I got my start with just audio production in general when I was working in radio. While I was in college, I got a job at a radio station, 91.5 The Lion. And really quickly, two things happened. One, I was given tasks of just, you're in here today? Okay, so this is what we're going to teach you today. Come on in. And two, out of everyone who got hired that same time that I did, I was the only one who was consistent and kept showing up. So I learned everything while everyone else just wasn't. So I got to learn a lot one-on-one, and I fell in love with it very quickly. And it turned out what they were teaching me was production. I thought it was just pressing buttons, watching levels, lining up audio. And they're like, no, you are a producer now. So whenever you're in here, call yourself the producer kind of situation. And so from there, I became production director. Eventually, I was actually station manager my last year there. But then I moved off to Texas, where I am now to continue education, and realized that I didn't like school. So I decided that I was going to go into business. And in the meantime, my friends kept telling me, Isaac, you miss radio, and it's pretty obvious. You need to find something. And so they were getting into podcasting. I got into podcasting just as a listener, as a consumer. And I realized everything that people were doing were things that I already knew how to do. Whenever I read about what it took to start a podcast, I was like, I already know this stuff. I know how to set up equipment. I know how to normalize audio. I know how to cut out things and make it sound like there was no mistake in the conversation whatsoever. And not to brag, but it was just all these tutorials. I was like, I already know this stuff. So I decided, let's do a podcast. And my friends were like, okay, let's do it. They committed, I committed. From there, I started my own show as well. Then I realized that there was a demand for producers. Then I realized that I could have a business behind a talent that I was very passionate about. And then we get to today, where I'm actually in groups where I can sit at the feet of giants, as I like to say, and learn from other people who are already doing this, come on to shows like this and just network with people and start to find my place in this whole world that is podcasting, mainly as a producer, but also as a host. And so where I'm at now is my focus is I like to help professionals, experts, teachers, entrepreneurs, coaches, businesses, yada, yada, yada. I like to help people generate exposure, develop their professional network, and attract and retain a quality audience or quality clients, if that's the word you want to use. But I like to help other people at this point, wherever they're at in the process, find their place in podcasting and invest in it, get them to think of it as an investment into themselves, into their brand, into their business, to grow and reap the dividends that I'm already experiencing.
The other day when you gave me that heads up, I was thinking to myself, because I know that there's some other folks in the group that we're in are interested in being on shows. And for a while there, I go in and out, and I've talked to Joe about it. I go in and out and trying to get on shows, and blah blah blah. And then I was thinking, gosh, I mean, you could. I see someone like you as kind of like a realtor that has a number of houses and buyers. He has properties and he has buyers, and so you can, because you're in this world, and so you can literally, as you did with me, go out there. And I know there's a company that does this. I can't remember the name. They just talked to Joe, and they tried. What they do is they get you on shows. They get you on shows, and and I was just thinking about the other day. I go, that's exactly what you could do. I mean, you could do where you're out there. When you're out there, and just keep a notebook or keep it on your computer, and say, hey, look, I ran into a health and fitness show, or I ran into a relationship show, I ran into this kind of show, and they're looking for guests, and then you just kind of bring them together. So they say, oh, I just ran into a relationship coach. This would be a good connection. Bam.
Mm.
And so you can literally start connecting people onto different shows. And I know CC's whole network is about relationships and stuff. And people would be probably interested in who you run into or saying, hey, and there's another, it's another, as Joe would say, another silo for you as you're, because I was thinking about that, because that was great. And the guy's got a decent following, he's a good guy. And I don't know where it's going to go, but I don't know where any of these shows go. But I know this, Isaac, it just takes one or two shows like this, because especially when you're doing the video stuff, one or two that could change everything for somebody.
Yeah. Yep.
It really could. And especially with right now, with some of the stats that we're going to get into here in a minute, with how much potential still that this market has.
Yeah.
It's nothing. You know that, right? This is nothing.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy.
Yeah. Let's just stay there for a second. How many, because you shared some numbers when I heard your interview, how many podcasts are there right now?
So, and this is I've done some more research actually since that podcast, so I'll share with you a little bit more of what I have now accumulated. As of May 2021, we broke the 2 million podcast mark. I don't know if that happened in April and they talked about it in May. I don't know if it was May 1st. We hit that point though. 2020, before pandemic hits, we're at 1 million. We're over 1 million.
Right.
2019, we're around 600,000 if I remember correct. And so we're at this point of exponential growth where you know that S curve that people draw whenever it comes to technology and then it starts to plateau at the very top. In my opinion, we're somewhere at the base. We haven't gone full vertical yet. We're going to get there. I think we're going to get there soon. But we haven't hit that point yet, which means if you get in now, we're at this point in podcasting where, when people used to talk about YouTube as, okay, this is just this thing that kids are getting on. All of a sudden, I'm looking up YouTube tutorials on how to fix the gas cap on my F-150.
Totally. I do that all the time.
It's become this household term, but it's not a household tool yet like YouTube is. And so imagine putting yourself in the YouTube market while it was still being talked about that way, and then think about where you would be today. That's where we're at with podcasting. I have some stats on I read an article today. I think it was in between 76 million and 77 million weekly listeners to podcasts out of those 2 million. Now that's a lot of people, but that's nothing compared to where it's going. Right now there's 2 billion with a B users on a regular basis of YouTube. YouTube has, according to what I saw, 31 million active channels, as in people are uploading videos and whatnot. I think that number is probably underestimated. But if it takes, let's just use that number, 31 million accounts that are actively listing content that people are consuming, feeding 2 billion audience members, 2 million podcasts, feeding 77 million. If those numbers continue to go up, the time to get in is now, because you're going to be able to tap into a much bigger audience better than people will be able to start later. And I'm kind of rambling right there, but that is where we're at.
No, it is, and it depends on. There's so many different podcasts. Because as we were talking about David Scholl, Gary Vee a few minutes ago, in that he would say talk about something that's interesting to you, whether it's a sports team or anything, just to get you to talk, because whether if YouTube or anything else, once you create an audience for whatever you're talking about, they'll pay you. So it doesn't really matter if you're running a business from your podcast or you're just trying to attract an audience, because whoever is hosting your podcast, right? iTunes or whatever, all these different hosting, Spotify, whatever, they don't really care. They care about numbers. Am I right about that? Yeah, so they're looking at your numbers.
Yeah. That's what they're focusing on, and they're talking about different changes and, subscriptions with Apple's a big hot topic right now. I don't know. I mean, like anything that's successful, it's going to start out slow and take a while to catch hold, but it's a numbers game to the actual platform players. But when it comes to you, it comes down to you and your audience and how you want to attract them. But we'll probably talk about the networking side of things later. Mm-hmm. But you touched on something that I'd like to that's been really resonating with me lately. I've realized you don't exactly have to have a show that's about your topic. Mm-hmm. You could have a show that's about a parallel topic and then kind of funnel them back to you and use podcasting as a sales funnel. So like with what you do, you have the show, but you also, as I understand, you have this phenomenal business model around getting people ready to run in the Grand Canyon.
Right.
Is that something that you're able to funnel people to as they get to know you better?
Oh, yeah. And then from there, we created, with Joe's help, we created another funnel of just fitness. And because that's kind of like what he had me do is just back way up and say, okay, well, people just need to get healthy first, get fit. So why don't you do that? And then you can kind of funnel them. Then you can funnel them back into the big thing, which would be the Grand Canyon. And here with the health, love, and life and adventure. So we added adventure to the show here because we're already talking about health and love, which is relationships, because it's all kind of tied together, Isaac. It's all tied together.
Oh yeah.
And so when I started doing that, it kind of opened up. It brought back stuff that I was doing almost 40 years ago. It was easy. It was kind of like I had to get my ego out of the way. Say, okay, look, smarty pants, you can go back and do this. You don't have to stay where, because it's all about being flexible, being nimble, being able to pivot. And so I've just done a number. I felt like I was dancing here last year, just doing lots of pivots to kind of get to that right spot. And I'm still not there, but I'm getting there. The podcast, honestly, this helps me to do this, to meet people, learn. I don't know who I'm going to meet. I'm just out there in my world. And for a long time, I was just doing solo shows. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, I need to start, talking to people. CC would send me some people here and there. And then I started doing my little show. And then that's just my brain unwinding on a 10-minute rant. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, that's where at some point you and I will talk. And I was like, okay, how can I take this and maybe monetize this as well? Cece's trying to help me monetize this thing. And so I know there's something here once I can kind of tie my brain down a little bit. But see, that's what you do. That's what you can do for somebody. Because you can take somebody, and tell me I'm right or wrong, from the beginning to the end.
Mm-hmm. I can take you from the beginning to the end, wherever you're at, and making a show and keeping it going and building it. When it comes to monetization, this is where I like to put things kind of back on the guest, because number one, every monetization funnel, method, avenue is going to be different for each person. What I might recommend to you would probably be something different than what I might recommend for Cece. You have an amazing product you could offer a discount on and get people in the door with.
Right.
I don't know what services are that she offers, but I'll use me as an example. One of my audiences as a host is nerds. So the things I cater to them, I have merch. I have sales that I run in a store. I have a coffee affiliate that I send people to. And these are just things that have come through the network that I've built. And that's another thing that it kind of depends on. But if you want to talk monetization, the first thing needs to be either making a show for your current audience or building an audience around your current show. And then you can start thinking about monetization, because this is another Gary Vee thing. If you're thinking about money up front and that's it, you will fail.
Yeah. Hold that thought for a second. We're going to take a quick break, so hold that thought. All right, we are back with Mr. Isaac Smith, the podcast producer extraordinaire, and having a little fun time here. He's educating me because a lot of this is Chinese, as they say, but I'm learning because I want to learn because I'm excited about stuff that he was just talking about. That podcast could be the next YouTube. Are you kidding me? I mean, who doesn't want to be part of that? So, but you were talking about why would someone fail when their only focus was money? What do you mean by that?
Think of a job that you've taken just because you needed an income. If you did not like that job, then you probably left it and it probably wasn't paying very good, because what's going to happen is you'll get into this podcast and the burnout will start to set in. And let's take my coffee sponsor. I've only made a few bucks off of it. The turnover rate for the avenues that are out there, people get really excited and they're drawn in, especially with Anchor, because that's one of Anchor's main selling points is we will help you monetize your podcast.
Oh, they do.
But then when you get in there, how much money do you actually make? And it's then you just focus on that small amount. All of a sudden, you have another stressor to the podcast itself. If you want to be successful in a business, you have to have a very long-term goal. And you have to learn as you go and be in it because it's something you believe in and you are prepared to face. Same thing with a podcast. Same thing with any investment that you're in. And so it's one of those things where you have to be in it. Very, very few people in my experience, in my opinion, find ways to make money doing something that they hate and stick with what it is that they hate.
And I think that's why you hear guys like Gary Vee saying, find something you're passionate about. Like, he's the big New York Jets fan, or he even uses that stuff. Hey, talk about strawberry jam or whatever you might do. It doesn't matter. Or talk about Star Wars or whatever. And so that's where I kind of, morphed into, hey, and it came, I think I might have been listening to him because the whole COVID thing was kind of weird with his show. But I said, I'm just going to talk about the Grand Canyon on my thing. So I started just talking about that because there wasn't much else to do. Couldn't really travel that much. And so that's what I did on my little show. And here I just try to meet people and hear what their views of life are and what their views of, and then I just recently went through a slew of, and I got a couple more slew of people that did the Grand Canyon. And so I just want to hear their adventure, and they were kind of caught off guard. Like, really? Someone wants to hear about my adventure? And it was kind of fun, because they thought it was kind of cool that I reached out to them to talk about their adventure. I thought, I'm thinking, God, there's a whole, that's a show, right? Because people love talking about themselves. Just like if I invited on every week here a podcast producer, I could do that every week. Because people want to talk about what you do. They do because they're passionate about it. You radio guys are some of the most passionate people on the planet. No, you are. It's a different breed. It's not like, I think it's even much more so than TV people, because TV people are more into what they look like.
Yep, that's the
You
truth.
guys are passionate about the buttons and what this does, and all the right. You're into all that stuff. It's incredible, and so
Hmm.
it's kind of cool. Well, let's back up for a second here.
Sure.
What is your ideal market? I mean, I know you said a bunch of different things earlier. Who is your best client who is somebody that you're looking for?
Someone that I'm looking for. Well, real quick, let me clarify something I said earlier. I don't mean to discourage anyone who's wanting to monetize a podcast. Let me just get that out there because that's important. That's important. It's just a long term vision.
Yeah.
But as far as people that I'm looking for, I love working with entrepreneurs. I love working with what I call real teachers. If you ever read Rich Dad, Poor Dad or The Cash Flow Quadrant, Robert Kiyosaki talks about a real teacher being someone who's in the field doing what it is they're teaching you to do. Those are the people that you can learn the most from. And I'm a learner. I'm not a school education. Well, I don't like school, but I like education.
Right.
I love learning and sitting at the feet of these wise people who are going through the steps that they're teaching. And so whenever I can get someone like that to try and reach out to their audience in a way that's very direct. Well, let's take the example of Joe Peachy. I would love to be Joe Peachy's podcast producer. Joe Peachy has an amazing product, but he has an audience that he is very active and very committed to. And then he turned around and started a podcast less than 3 years ago. If he had started a podcast however many years before that, it'd be that much bigger. But the impact that he's had on people since that point has magnified, multiplied, and it's great. That's how I've learned so much from him before really signing up for Sell More Virtually. And I don't mean to make this about his product, but
No. But it's a good example.
yeah, people who have a message and have a direction they're wanting to go, and I don't care what the direction is. I've reached out to startups. I reached out to the Kansas Farmers Union. And we're going into a conversation soon about what it is they do and their audience, and finding a way to start reaching out to them directly. And that's the need that I fill. But those are also the kind of people I'm looking for because they are real teachers with something real that they need to get out directly to their audience. So, in a nutshell, that's what I'm looking for.
And that kind of leads to my next question. I think it blends together here when you say, why should someone invest? So these good old boy farmers, I mean, they have a message. They have something that they're trying to sell, whether it be meat or corn or barley or soy or whatever they're trying to sell or market or whatever their message is. Everybody has a message, right? So, but at the same time, they're going, man, Isaac, I don't know how to do a podcast. Well, I wouldn't know where to start. And that's where you go. That's where you come up with, as Joe would say, that value proposition. Well, I just happen to work with farmers unions to create blah, 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 right? And they go, get out of here. You do that? And so then you're off to the races.
Exactly.
So when you say invest, what are you talking about?
When I say invest, it's getting someone to my first thing is investing as a call to action. It's my call to action. If I put money in something for retirement, then that means I am looking to really get dividends on it as I go and as I put more into it. If I expect an immediate return, I'm on the wrong medium. Like I said before, I think in another call that me and you were on, if someone doesn't have a long-term vision for what it is they're doing, that's the first red flag for me, and I'm probably going to be out because I need to know that you're committed to this. And so when you look at it as an investment, okay, I have a realistic expectation. I am willing to put in the effort in something on a regular basis to build this audience and to get this message to more people. Because when you invest in it, you start to see returns, but they compound as they go. Especially when it comes to your network, which is kind of my favorite part about podcasting, is the connections that come from it and the people that you meet, the things you learn that you turn around and then teach to your audience as well. Because like this right here, I was in a group where I found someone looking for athletic, real teachers to come on and be interested in doing the show. I have been following your content, and I remembered Arnie. I need to get this guy in touch with Arnie. From there, you invite me on your show. I would like to invite you on mine at some point.
Yeah.
And this compounds as it goes. Mm-hmm. So what's going to happen is from here on out, whenever I meet someone who is in your niche, your name's going to come up. Whenever you meet someone that's in my niche, I am praying that my name will come up. But that's just one of the different things that happens when you invest in a podcast.
Yeah, no, I like that because it's really how all business works. It's really how business used to work. You're out having lunch with somebody and they're saying, hey, this and this. Oh yeah, I know this guy Isaac. Here's his card. Give him a call. Tell him that John said to give you a call. Mm-hmm. But that's how it used to work. And that word, that referral. When I was doing the homework today, and that referral is still the most powerful client opportunity for me.
Agree.
When I get it is amazing. I think I bat 1,000%. There might have been a couple of whiffs in there over the last many, many, many years, but very few, Isaac. Versus like we were talking about today, where you call. I make a lot of calls off of LinkedIn usually, and you get these calls, and where I had a guy yesterday said, "Oh, the guy can't even squat down and stand up. Can't climb up his stairs in his own home." And so I presented what I do and to help him out. And then he sends me a text. Oh, I forgot what it was. Really like, well, I think I'm going to be okay. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and I said, you know what that means? It means he talked to his doctor. He's probably going to have a knee replacement. That's what it means. Because I've been in this long enough to know. And that's okay. That's okay. But that's where we've gotten to now, instead of, and I don't look at it as a waste of time. I did a presentation for him and did, the core story and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But it would be nice. People have a hard time getting past. I mean, this guy lived in Boston. I'm in Arizona. You're in Texas. Cece's in Florida. That's not the old referral world, dude. Right? No. And so we have to get past this. How do I trust this guy Isaac who's in Texas when I'm in Arizona? Do I know somebody that knows somebody? You know what I'm saying? And so this is a different world now. And so we have to learn to trust people. And a lot of it comes from from the fruit. I like to call myself a fruit inspector. So, and I know I'm on the same deal. So if people are going, well, what have you done? And I have to, keeps me on my toes. I mean, I have to stay sharp. So if somebody has a health question for me or a fitness question or something about what my specialize in, if I can't answer it, I either have to be smart enough to say, hey, I don't know, but I'll help you find it. Because if I start BSing around there, I'm digging myself a hole. That's just like yourself. If I came to you with some podcast questions and stuff that you do and producing, you're going to be pretty good at answering those questions. If I try to answer questions like that, I'm going to sound like an idiot. So I think you're right. We build that network and we start to trust each other in that network. And pretty soon that network gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. I think that's the key here, versus just, randomly just throwing names out there. And even though it does work, but so I get that. I get the whole thing about investing. And in your case, being able to go to somebody and say, hey, look, if you're willing to do this, I'm willing to do that. Let's make an agreement. Let's go to work, and I'm going to help you get to X. Maybe I'm going to help you build this thing, put it together, so that you can fly this thing. Is that kind of what you do?
Well, I was going to piggyback off of something you said. Imagine all the situations where you've put your best foot forward and it's done really well, cataloged into one place.
Yeah.
That is what a podcast can be,
Oh.
because you get to edit, you get to do all the things, and that's where I come in. So let's say you have a excellent sales pitch, you've got this thing mastered, or let's say that you have different parts, that some of which you need to polish a bit, and you just want to come in and record it 3 times. Whichever one of those you want to do, what I can do is, for whatever episode it is, I can sit down, I can take the best parts and put it together to where it's one excellent part, because this isn't exactly a performance. This is a sales pitch that we're talking for whatever this episode is. So you want your best foot to go forward. So at that point, your message is clear, it's strong, and you can use it as a reference. Okay, so Arnie, I have a question about starting training in the Grand Canyon. Well, Joe, here's my number. Let's meet up. Let's talk. But in the meantime, here's a link to this episode where I actually answer that exact question, and I go deeply into it. So there's a number of different ways. If I'm understanding your question right, at what point do I come in to helping solidify those relationships in that network? It's wherever your message needs to stand out, and it's also wherever your information needs to get to the right people. I help. I will go as far as you go, but my end will be very polished, and you will have your best foot forward.
So, okay, let me be a little more clear. So you can literally, if somebody needed Isaac Smith to take that recording, let's say they're doing their recording of an interview or whatever, you show them how to do the recording, okay? And they go, okay, Isaac, here it is. We did it on this platform, and then make us sound good. And then you take that recording, right, and you can brush it up, clean it up, edit it down to where it looks good, and then you can upload it to whatever platform that you guys have agreed to, correct?
Correct.
And then you can spread it around, share it to the different social media places and wherever they,
Oh yeah.
Wherever they're. So you can do all that for them, and then obviously be connected to some kind of an email source wherever people can email back if they have questions, they hear it, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So you can do. So that's I'm assuming that someone like me that wouldn't know how to do any of that would say, "Hey, Isaac, take care of it. Make me sound good. Make me look good," and you can do that.
As far as my business model, if you have whatever the best capacity that your equipment can produce, I can proportionately. I can proportionately. I can, and as long as you're willing to manage your socials, and you're willing to sit down and provide the content, you will not have to worry about the rest. It will be out there, and it will be your catalog to share with the world. Mm-hmm.
So you're making people feel very safe about doing a podcast, and I think that was kind of the whole Anchor theme. And when it started, hey guys, we're going to take all this stuff, because I forgot even what I was using before. We're going to take all that crazy stuff out of this thing. And when they talk to Gary, Gary, just pick up your phone and just talk to your phone. And we'll take care of everything, right? Is that what they did?
If the reason we have 2 million podcasts right now is because of Anchor.
Yeah.
The reason that the vast majority of people quit is because of Anchor.
Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword, but yes, I can provide that touch though that Anchor can't. I'll use the same tools, but you're working with me. You're not working with Anchor. You're working with someone who's going to know your name, remember your birthday, and get all the ums out of the recording.
So that is your uniqueness. Is I'm going to be there for you. I mean,
I am your podcast producer. I'm at your disposal, and we're going to make this work.
See, that's powerful, because people want that. Well, I know me, I was paying for that before my first show with some guy that was in England. I forgot the name of it. It was he was one of the biggest at the time. You would know his name if I said it. And he had this deal out of England, and so whenever I needed help, we'd get on these calls through the Skype, whatever it was, and it was like 8 hours difference, that kind of thing, and
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of frustrating, to do that. And I was trying to learn this thing, and I didn't feel safe about the whole thing, and paying a lot more money than I wanted to, anyways. And when you're paying money, Isaac, you want to make money.
That's right.
And so that puts an added stress. So what you said earlier really hit home. It's like, well, why are you doing that? Because it takes time. And that's not what they always, that back then they didn't say that. Hey, just do a podcast, you make a lot of money. Right? I know.
I mean, same with YouTube, and with YouTube, you're fighting not a double-edged sword there, but YouTube likes to pay you for X number of videos once you reach a certain point. We're not at that point with podcasting.
Yeah.
We're just not. Someday we could be, but right now it is what you make of it.
Okay, couple questions here as we kind of start to wrap up.
Yes, sir.
What is the competition? I mean, you keep saying we got 2 million podcasts. So what is the competition like right now in the podcast world? What's it like?
So in the Sales Edge podcast, I was a guest on there, and I said 90% of people have not uploaded a podcast in the last year. I've looked at some stats since then. There was one study that said that number was closer to 80%. There was one that suggested in a case study that 75% were at that point. But the narrative's the same. The farther and farther out you go, the fewer and fewer people keep up with it, which means I'm not competing with 2 million podcasts. I'm competing with 10 to 20%. Now, let's say we get into my niche. There are not 2 million podcasts about how to start a podcast.
Yeah.
There are not 2 million podcasts about health and fitness. Now, whatever that number is, there's even fewer that talk about the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
There's even fewer that talk about the Grand Canyon and have an excellent microphone. There's even fewer that talk about the Grand Canyon, have an excellent microphone, and post multiple times a week. The farther and farther you niche down, the less and less your competition is. And there's so many ways to niche down, but I know we're short on time, so I'll keep it brief. We aren't needing to look at the market and how many different shows there are. All you got to worry about is how you're going to stand out. You can be first, you can be most unique, or you can work the hardest. I recommend doing all three if you can. But if you can do that in your niche, you won't have to worry about standing out. You just got to worry about staying consistent and getting eyes on your show, but you don't need to worry about the competition.
Wow. Well, Isaac, I mean, there's a lot here that we still haven't even scratched the surface on. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you would like to share with people before we get to how they can get a hold of you? Is there anything else that you'd to share with something that's a nugget?
I can't stress this enough. The time to start was yesterday. And I like to say that I get a lot of excuses when it comes to podcasting. It's too complicated. I can't figure it out. I don't have the time. There's an example I use. I feel that way about QuickBooks. We talked before the show. I'm a millennial, unfortunately, and I just can't justify getting it. I don't have the time. It's too much work. All the excuses that you can make about podcasting, I can make about QuickBooks, is what it comes down to. And if you're going to roll your eyes at me, I reserve the right to roll my eyes right back at you, because it's something, it's an asset you need to invest in.
Yeah. Well, this has been amazing, my friend, and again, thank you again for the referral. But why don't you take a minute here and just finish up with tell people how they can get a hold of you, and the best way to get a hold of you, and just tell everybody about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, my email and my phone number's in that box just below, sir.isaac.smith@gmail.com, and then my phone number is 785-979-6216. Call me, text me, smoke signals. I'll pretend that I can understand it, but we can get in touch however we need to. I am the host of The Asset of Podcasting. It's a show that I've launched recently, mainly just showcasing this kind of information. Not so much as just how to start, but getting into the nitty gritty of what the next step is, what it really, really takes. Not surface level content, Also, I'm the host of the Business RPG. That is my my pride and joy podcast. As far as I found a niche market no one else was in.
Yeah.
But it's also a lot of, we have a lot of fun on there if you'd like to get into some nerdy content.
Well, this has been great, Isaac. You're awesome. I am very thankful for Joe finding you and for you being part of our network here as well. And I know that there could possibly be something here for you as in this whole thing too. But I think the more people you run into that need what you do, because there's a lot of us that do, and you know that. That your world's going to blow up, man. And I appreciate you. I really do.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on the show. You know, as far as me being in this field, I need to take becoming a guest on shows more seriously, because like we were talking about earlier with the networking, this is you being willing to take the time is a blessing, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Isaac. Have a great rest of your evening, man.
You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.